In this week's EV news, Tesla's Superchargers are deemed illegal in Germany. MFG apply for permission for an EV charging hub on the A40 in Herefordshire. BMW reveal their M Division's quad motor EV prototype, and Motability launch a series of pilots to try and improve EV accessibility. Welcome back to another EV news. I'm trying hard to get into a regular rhythm with these. It's not going particularly well, as I'm sure you've noticed, but we'll get there eventually. As always, I'd really appreciate it if you click that like button to convince the algorithm that these videos are worth watching. And if you're new here, subscribe to make sure you never miss out on a new video. First up, no, it's not just clickbait, despite what you might think. As reported by Electrek, and there's a link in the description, as always, should you want to read the original article for yourself, Tesla's supercharger stations that are open to non-Tesla EVs have been deemed to be illegal in Germany. As you know, especially if you're a regular viewer of this channel, Tesla have been opening up some of their superchargers to all EVs. They did this in the UK back in May, and non-Tesla drivers can now charge at selected sites using the Tesla app to start and pay for a charge. It's great stuff, but there's a slight catch. Until now, the supercharger network was private for Tesla drivers only, so legislation for public charging didn't apply. Now that it's open to all EVs, even if just for some sites, it faces different rules. And in Germany, there's a pretty big problem. Every charging station where you need to pay per kilowatt hour must comply with calibration law in Germany. That means it must have a meter that precisely measures the energy that is delivered. A physical meter, not a number shown in an app. It needs to be on a screen where you can see that it's attached to the charger. It's unclear how Tesla could comply with this requirement at the moment. They've always relied on their app to monitor charging sessions, and of course you'll not find any kind of screen on a supercharger station. Now, apparently the German government has no immediate desire to enforce this requirement. They're not stopping Tesla from operating their chargers. It almost seems like a shot across the bow. There's an indication in the article that they're not alone and that there are other charging stations in Germany that are also in violation of these regulations. But Tesla by far have the largest number of locations that fall foul of it. It will be interesting to see how this one pans out. I don't think Tesla are going to retrofit screens to superchargers anytime soon. And the more sceptical amongst you might well point out that Ionity, who don't have this problem with their chargers, is owned by a consortium of mostly German car manufacturers. I'm sure that's just a coincidence, of course, but let me know what you think of that in the comments. Next up, MFG have applied for permission to open an EV charging hub on the A40 in Herefordshire. MFG, Motor Fuel Group, are probably one of the best kept secrets in EV charging, but I think that's changing rather rapidly as they continue with their massive rollout. If you've never heard of them, they are the UK's largest independent forecourt operator with over 900 sites across the country. At the moment, obviously they primarily sell petrol and diesel, but they're rolling out huge numbers of ultra-rapid EV chargers across their sites. Every site I've seen so far doesn't just have one or two chargers tucked in the corner, it's a proper hub with 8 or more rapids. And they're in useful locations as well. I've used the one at Crow Orchard just off junction 27 of the M6 a few times. It's a stone's throw away from the motorway, and because there's 8 rapids there, you'll almost certainly get a charge when you need one. The new site they're looking to open is at Simmons Yacht service station on the A40 northbound at Whitchurch in Herefordshire, where they're looking to install 8 150 kilowatt chargers on a vacant space to the southwest of the site. As usual, the plan is to cover it with a canopy, which I know is a huge bonus that a lot of you appreciate, and they're looking to add a new air and water and vacuum machine, which I've noticed they do quite a lot as well, next to the chargers, which is very useful stuff indeed. It looks to me like it's much needed in the area as well. If you look at Zap Map, there's not much choice around there if you're looking for a rapid charger. I think it'll be very welcome indeed, and I do hope that the council sees sense and approves the application. Have you used an MFG site to charge your car? What did you think of it? Let me know in the comments. I'll try and do a bit of a review of one in the future, maybe even this one on the A40 if it goes ahead. It's not terribly far away from me. Next up, concept car news, which is a bit divisive I suppose, depending on whether or not it gets built, but you could see this one happening. BMW have revealed that its M Division is working on a quad motor EV prototype, testing a concept that will form the basis of its next generation of performance EVs. It has a brand new MX-Drive four-wheel drive system with an electric motor fitted to each wheel, which has also been designed to recoup energy under braking, and there's a link in the Autocar article in the description if you'd like to take a closer look yourself. The concept is a modified BMW i4 M50 with an adapted body strut concept taken from the BMW M3 and M4 and bulked up wider wheel arches to accommodate the motors. BMW said this new drive system opens up completely new possibilities with extremely precise torque and power delivered to each wheel within milliseconds. It added, the power and torque of the spontaneously reacting electric motors can be dosed so precisely that the load demand signalled via the accelerator pedal can be realised at a level of dynamics that is unattainable using conventional drive systems. This means that the driver is able to experience entirely new performance characteristics never before felt in an M car. That is a bold claim, let's be honest. But I absolutely love to see this. Manufacturers that definitely have the capability to produce some really brilliant EVs actually applying their engineering capabilities and getting on with it. I think BMW massively screwed up by almost forgetting about EV development for a number of years after releasing the groundbreaking, brilliant i3, but it seems they're starting to get back into their stride. The i4, of course, gets rave reviews, and I'm sure if this concept turns into a proper electric M car, it will be very well received indeed. One to watch very closely, I think, and one that will definitely divide opinion. You'll have the hardcore, oh, it doesn't go brum brum brigade breaking out in a cold sweat, I think. And finally for this week, some much needed news from Motability, who are launching a series of pilots to improve EV accessibility. Motability Operations provides affordable motoring to disabled people and their families in the UK via the Motability Scheme. It's a car leasing scheme designed to help with the mobility needs of the disabled. Along with the recent announcement of a new government consultation investigating the accessibility of electric vehicle chargers, the series of pilots aims to remove some of the barriers to charging for those that are unable to charge at home. Working with Founders Intelligence, Motability Operations Innovation Team has a range of pilots with British startup businesses planned for this year and beyond. Starting with ZapMap, Charge Ferry, Co-Charger and Bonnet, the initial pilots are already live with Motability Scheme customers across the UK. Jonathan Jenkins, Head of Innovation at Motability Operations, said, as more of our Motability Scheme customers transition to EVs, it's vital that there is worry-free access to charging for everyone. Hundreds of Motability Scheme customers are trialling the ZapMap app, which offers a UK-wide map of charging points and aims to help EV drivers locate and navigate to available ones. Obviously, you're all very well familiar with ZapMap. I mean, it's one of my go-to apps for sure for finding chargers. In a 3-month pilot with Co-Charger, a selection of Motability Scheme customers is also engaging with Co-Charger's community of privately owned chargers. And Co-Charger is a really good concept. It's where you can share your charger. They connect hosts across the UK who have home chargers that they might not necessarily use all the time, and they connect them to motorists who do not have off-street parking or the facilities at home to install a charger. So you can regularly offer your charger to your neighbour so they can use it when you don't need to. Furthermore, Motability Scheme customers have been trialling Bonnet's charging app, which connects 17 EV charging networks in Europe, so users access one app with one account and one payment to cover all charges. And as we know, these aggregator schemes are also very useful because when you're travelling so long distance, you don't need to worry whether you've got the right app or the right card, because in theory, something like Bonnet will give you enough charging options that you'll be able to cover them. Finally, in a pilot with Charge Ferry, a group of Motability Scheme customers have been using Charge Ferry's mobile electric car charging service, which was created to remove some of the barriers to everyday electric vehicle charging. The Charge Ferry technology monitors a customer's charge level remotely, and when their charge drops below a certain point, a Charge Ferry van visits the customer's car wherever it's parked and charges it. I'm not so sure about that last one. The idea of mobile charging vans kicking around waiting for someone to need charging seems a bit ridiculous to me, to be quite frank. Hopefully that the pilot will make them realise that. I mean, there's quite a few sort of dubious startups in the EV world that I think are solving problems that don't quite exist. But at the end of the day, it's all good news that these things are being trialled. I'm not sure it addresses the real elephant in the room though, which I touched on at the start of this story. Accessibility is a huge barrier to EV transition for a number of disabled drivers who find some of the infrastructure being rolled out incredibly difficult to use. Sometimes I think charging operators are completely blind to the fact that not everybody's able-bodied. They're smacking in infrastructure with complete disregard for how difficult it might be to use. There's an awful lot more to do, but hopefully this is at least the start of a sign that some of the organisations best placed to enact change, and I think Motability is definitely one of those, are trying to do so. Well, as always, let me know what you think in the comments. That's all we've got time for in this week's EV News. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.